views with myself, Salalo Makwidiri. We're going to be having our hashtag Africa Focus feature. This is a part of the show where we focus on some of the key headlines making the rounds on the African continent. And this time around, we'll be turning our attention to West Africa, where political tensions in Mali specifically have taken another dramatic turn. Over the weekend, more than 40 soldiers, including two high-ranking generals, were arrested on allegations of plotting to destabilize the government. Among them, General Abbas Dembele, a former governor and respected figure within the army, and Brigadier General Nema Sagara, one of the few women to rise to such a rank in Mali's armed forces. And this is the latest chapter in a country that has already been rocked by two coups, if I'm not mistaken, in recent years. There's been delayed elections. There's a worsening jihadist kind of insurgency that's also showing up, popping up, rearing its ugly head, and then increasingly, some might say, authoritarian grip by the ruling military dispensation of the day. And with political parties dissolved and thousands killed in ongoing conflict, Mali's future appears to be rather uncertain. To help us unpack the significance of some of these arrests and what they could signal for democracy, for security, and for stability in the Sahel region, I'm now joined by Mika Shavala. He's a Tanzanian-based podcast and founder of Swahili Nation and One Africa. Mika, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Pleasure's all ours. I think, excuse me, the news about the arrests and this coup attempt broke over the weekend. What do we know so far about this alleged coup plot and some of these arrests to these high-ranking military officials in Mali?
Yeah. Well, I've seen the news, and even myself, actually, I've done a little bit of a recap of what has happened. But I think when you look at the country of Mali, it has a long history of having a coup. Once in a while. I think for a long time right now, mostly of the regimes in Mali has been, coming on the regime just like that. And I think this is something that has happened within the community, like within all the soldiers, of Mali. Some of them, they were actually plotting the plan, I guess, to take it over the regime. And I believe it is because of what, we have seen, recent news. We've seen the leader president of Mali. He actually kind of like, he dissolved like all the electoral commission and everything. And I think some of the people, some of the soldiers have been not okay with what is happening within. And the thing of what is happening in the Western Africa, you kind of feel like whatever you sow, that is what you're going to reap. So I think what is happening is that like everybody feels like, I think right now I can take over the government and lead this country in the right direction. And everybody, they're just trying to do that. So I think within this community of soldiers, the people who, I mean, they're kind of like against of what is happening. And they were planting that, strategy, I think, to take them down. That's so far what we know or what we see, because there's no they haven't released too much, details of what really happened, but this is what we see from what is happening there.
Mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
I want to touch a bit on the political and security implications of these latest news.
Mm.
One thing, and I think you mentioned it in your opening statement, the fact that Mali, I think this
Mm.
has been the status quo in the last few years, where every regime has gotten into power through a coup.
Yeah.
Mali in itself has already experienced two coups, and this is since 2020. What does this tell us about the leadership in Mali right now? Is this maybe a sign of the military junta losing its grip, losing power, losing control, and stability over Mali?
Yeah, it is. I was actually thinking about that, yesterday, and and I was like, what will be the solution to these countries? Because it kind of feel like, every time you have, juntas, you have coups, like all the time it happens. Like, when are we gonna have, stable country? When are we gonna have stability in the country? Why all the time countries support? I mean, it has to be in the move, it has to be in the war, it has to be in all this stuff. Then I realized that, okay, if democracy did not work in these countries, like, just the normal way of voting, whatever, according to whatever standard that we decide or whatsoever. But now it kind of seems like even the soldiers as well, I mean, this coup who are coming on the regime as well, is not working. So what really is going to work for a country like Mali, or what really is going to work for the country of Western Africa? And to be honest, I don't really have straight answer. I'm still
Mm,
thinking about this because I don't, like, I really don't know, like, what I think the most important thing that we need to think of as Africans, we need to, focus on the people, Malian people, like, what do they, really want for their country? And I think there's a need to have a national dialogue. There's a need to have, understanding of that, before moving forward. But what I'm seeing or what is happening, kind of feel like it doesn't really matter what people want, but it matters what soldiers want, right? Because soldiers might be willing to still have the juntas that are in the regime, but what about the soldiers who are there? So there's been a seed of betrayal in the country, and I think that seed is keep on, eating the country little by little, and this is what we see happening.
mm, mm.
Mm,
I want to ask you one last question, and I know it might be a bit controversial.
mm,
The Sahel region, right? Countries including Burkina Faso, Mali. There's been this kind of wave of these military leaders that
mm,
come in, and the most notable one being Ibrahim Traore. I forgot Niger also, which is this new group, this regional bloc, that
mm,
have became friends of some sort, and they've kind of stepped away from ECOWAS. Um,
mm,
don't you think one of the dangers that maybe as Africans we are making at this current moment is glorifying dictatorship? I'm
mm,
talking in the back end of Ibrahim Traore. He's
mm,
lauded on the continent. Young
mm,
people see him as this new visionary leader that's going
yeah,
to take Africa forward.
mm,
And he also did the same thing that has happened in Mali. Where he said
mm,
there's not going to be elections. We're not going to
mm,
be having an electoral commission
mm,
until I say so, essentially.
mm,
And that we are not dismissing that. He
mm,
also came through a coup,
mm,
and it seems through that region, through the Sahel region, that's the
mm,
status quo. How dangerous is that aspect where, because of how bad things have been on the continent, we kind
yeah,
of have this disregard for democracy and what it
that's right.
represents, and we'd rather
Mm,
have dictators in place like Ibrahim
mm,
Traore. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because of how
yeah,
popular he's been on
yeah,
the
yeah.
continent.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, brother. I'm telling you the truth, man. Like what you are raising, it is very. I think is very important question that as Africa we need to ask ourselves and to kind of like think about why. I mean, where are we going and where? I mean, what do we want to be? I always talk about the democracy and democracy according to the Western standard, and I think we should have democracy according to the people standard or African standard. I think this is kind of dialogue we're supposed to have in the continent. The same thing that has happened in Mali, it happened in Burkina Faso as well. The slight difference of what is happening in Burkina Faso is what I say I think it's what Ibrahim Traore is doing, for the country and for the people. I remember first time when he came, he was supposed to be there for 1 year, but then people they say, hey, we want you more, so they added 5 more years, and we don't know what is gonna happen after five, more years. But to be honest, we see what is happening in the country. We see the changes that has been done in the country. We see the effort that is done by the leadership to make sure that people they are actually happy, right? And I have a couple of my friends who went to Burkina Faso. Even myself, I'm planning to go to Burkina Faso this year. and I to just see by myself like what is really happening on the ground. But I think people are really tired because I think they have already tried with democracy and they saw that okay, this is not working for us. It never worked for us. Right now we need to stand on our own. We need to see what is happening. We need to try any other way possible to see if things are going to work for us. And therefore, when you find one good leader, they just want to continue to have that leader. I think it's the same thing that is happening in the eastern side of Africa. You talk about Uganda and Rwanda as well. These are two different countries and two different things are happening in both countries. I've been to both countries, but I've been to Rwanda, I've been to Uganda. When I went to Rwanda, I saw people, they are really happy with what they have. Like they don't want anything else, but they just want their leader because of what he has done since 1994 until right now. They just want him to continue to be their president. So I think I mentioned this area that I think what has to matter for African context, we need to define what does democracy look for us, right? How does it look for us? How do we want it to work for us? And I think it has, I mean, it might be slight different from democracy we know from the Western standard and all that, but if that is working for us and if the people agrees to that, I think we should move on with that, because the most important thing, we need to see our country moving forward. We need to see stability in our countries. And just mind you that through all this time, Westerners or Easterners or whatever, they're not watching and applauding that okay, what is going on is really good in these countries. They're always looking for an opportunity to come back. They're always looking for an opportunity to to chip in their own puppets, leaders, and all that stuff. So it's gonna be really hard to have stability unless the continent of Africa decide that now we need to come together as one people and to defend our continent. What is happening in the Western Africa, it is actually transformational. It's happening there, but we as Africans, we need to stand up and to actually push forward each other, and we need to come together. With this agenda of one Africa, one passport, one currency, things that can defend our borders and help us to stand together as one people. I think that will be way forward to have sustainable life here in the continent.
And I think we're going to here for now, and I think you touched on something that's very, very important. But my fear is that we shouldn't be making the same mistakes as our parents have made on the African continent
Mm,
so many a times. When
yeah.
profiles and individuals come through with the promise of changing our lives overnight,
Mm,
and we're saying it's okay. We find
mm,
ourselves in dictatorships, which has been the norm. We say we
yeah.
tried democracy on the continent, but we've also tried dictatorships, and they've
Yeah.
also not worked well. But otherwise, we're going to be there for now. Asante and Kwahiri, really appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate
There you go. That was Tanzania-based podcaster and founder of Swahili Nation and One Africa, Mika Shavala, giving us insight on a concerning state of affairs out in Mali. I think something that is becoming a trend or has become a trend in the West African Sahel region, the issues of coups. Eh? One of your favorites, I assume, Ibrahim Traore came through coup. He's also said there won't be any elections. He's dissolved the Electoral Commission of Burkina Faso. And yeah, it's a concerning state of affairs. And it raises a lot of questions about how the continent of Africa has become so despondent in democracy that we are seeing coups as the new norm. Even here in South Africa, there's been conversations about people saying, maybe we need a coup, maybe we need a dictator. And that's a dangerous, dangerous route to take. Democracy may not be the best system. Do we need to Africanize it, tweak it where we can so that it fits the context of where we are? Because it was just a cut and paste from the colonial masters. We didn't really redefine what democracy means in the African context. And I think that's what's important. That's what we need to do. Not call for coups and call for dictators because we've become so despondent with the status quo and the current affairs of our nations. That's very, very dangerous, and we shouldn't fall to that trap. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues.